Welcome to today's ClariTea Chat. We extend our heartfelt gratitude for being with us in over 115 sessions, made possible by your support and engagement. Management-wise, IT is the most complex function. 4 reasons why. One, IT managers have to grapple with fast-evolving technology landscape to address their specific industry's processes. And these processes span across the entire organization. Number two, IT management is a nascent function, merely 30 to 40 years old. Number three, technology talent is asymmetric. Over 90% of the technology talent is on the supplier side. And number four, the Hotel California syndrome. You can get into any technology, but you can't come out of it. Therefore, the decisions have to be careful, yet are complex with the context of all the above factors. The intense marketing noise and pricing tactics makes decision-making more difficult. ClariTea Chat helps you make sense of IT management by bringing live, interactive interviews with esteemed business and IT leaders. The discussions guide you with invaluable insights into technology and leadership. The ClariTea Chat sessions have seen 60 plus guests and not only CIOs. They share their knowledge, life experiences, and insights with all of you. We've also conducted 33 freewheeling Ask Me Anything sessions. Many of these delved into focused but diverse topics such as change management and program management. ClariTea Chat is tech savvy and virtual. I and my guests have attended these from diverse places, and our audience attends it from across the globe. ClariTea Chat is all about you, our audience. We work hard to enrich your 1 hour with technology, leadership, and insights. We listen to you. We run an annual feedback process via surveys and focus groups. Not that we are able to do everything you tell us, but we calibrate to our best ability. Throughout our journey, we have celebrated milestones, making each occasion special with special guests, panel discussions, and thematic explorations. Thank you for being part of our incredible journey. Welcome to today's ClariTea Chat.
Hey, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the 35th edition of Ask Me Anything, and this is the 122nd edition of ClariTea Chat. Well, we had a great run of consecutive guest sessions, and it's now time for an open-ended, interactive Ask Me Anything session. We were really delighted to know in our annual feedback that all of you look forward to the Ask Me Anything session. So we decided to take the break and do this one. Well, as they say, a car is not sufficient for your journey. You also need the highway, you need the driving skills, and you need the navigation tools too. Similarly, the digital journey, which is to reach the business outcomes that you intend to, it takes much more than technology itself, and therefore these sessions in ClariTea Chat are the driving and navigation lessons in your technology journey. Well, we also tell you how to build the highways. And so we cover areas in technology and especially beyond the technology to realize the real impact of technology to get you where you want to go. The idea is not technology by itself. The idea is not about owning a car itself, but to reach different places. Similarly, the idea is not to build technology, but to achieve business outcomes, right? So in today's AMA session, please ask anything, any questions related to IT leadership or any chronic issue you have on your mind. Let's discuss your challenges, which are coming in your way for making technology effective. So today, in our recent run of multiple guest ClariTea Chats, the interactions left us overwhelmed. We could not cover all the questions, so we generally keep a backlog of those questions for a discussion. So we try to respond to some of them on LinkedIn itself. So today we have some good questions to get started on our today's session. Like, for example, future of AI transforming business, the leadership principles for navigating tough times, organization model for successful digital delivery. And some of these I can cover with my own experiences of changing the operating model of IT 2-3 times to align and iterate with the changing times. But of course, the audience questions in this session, they take priority over anything else. While we have prepared some stuff, but your questions in this session take top priority. Um, so, as always, Clarity Chat is all experience, no gyan. You will get honest answers, case studies, and practical insights and approaches, and some first principle thought processes. So, but before we go forward, it's become a ritual for me to thank all of you who attend the Clarity Chat session. So we have CXOs, founders, IT managers, and seasoned technology industry leaders in our audience. All of us know that technology is necessary but not sufficient to drive business performance. The guests on Clarity Chat and as well as myself, we have built the bridge between the necessary and sufficient with the art of managing technology. And Clarity Chat builds that bridge between their learnings and all of you who are trying to make an impact with technology. We took the analogy of driving lessons, and the way you cannot simply learn driving by reading about it or by watching some YouTube videos. Similarly, the art of managing technology, given that it's so complex, as we say in our introduction video, it does require practical discussions and learning from people who have experienced managing it, the way an experienced driver can teach you how to drive well and manage different scenarios, right? Okay, so but once again, thank you all for joining us for the last 121 episodes and encouraging us with your interactions and questions. So let us see who are here. But before I do that, may I request our audience to share your name and where you are joining from in the comment box of LinkedIn or YouTube. So we do see uh, Karthikeyan. Hey, Karthik, and Team Flock and Go. Wow, awesome, awesome. Thanks for joining us. Amarinder, you were beaten by a whisker here by Karthik. Greetings from Nama Bengaluru. Good evening, Jagdish Belwal. Hey, good evening, Amarinder, and thanks for being there. And Satya, Sats, good morning, and thanks for joining us again. I know it's your, I think, 6:30 in the morning, and thanks for joining us so early. We also have Jay Shete here, GM from GM Cummins. Hey, thanks, Jay, for joining us. I understand you must be from Pune. Thank you. So let's get started. And since it's a Ask Me Anything session, so you don't really need to wait for anything. Whatever is on your mind, you can simply go ahead and ask. As I said, typically um, the topics to discuss are, topics which are on top of your mind, something which is blocking you, something that's challenging your wits. It could be related to teams, it could be related to your stakeholders, leaders, even your partners. Feel free to ask. I mean, this is a free flowing discussion here. Okay, so let's begin the session. So the first question was about the future of AI transforming business. Um, I think, sorry guys, I don't remember who asked that question in which session, but I think it was there in our LinkedIn post. We had invited all of you whose questions were pending here. Vinay, that's an improvement idea for the future. Okay, we need to. Oh, this is from Saurabh Mishra. Sorry, guys, it's there. It's there. Yeah. Okay. So, so let's understand. As we say, we have a first principles discussion here. When we talk about how will AI impact business, we should understand, like, what AI as we now in this new avatar see in doing, but we must also understand that AI has been there for a while, right? But it has not been in the form of a generative AI. It has more been in the form of as an evolution of data and analytics. So, 3-4 sessions back, we had Amol Deshpande, and he was mentioning to me that he wrote his first paper on artificial intelligence sometime in early 2000s when he was a student. So, uh, let's go back to the basics, as I said. So analytics, the subject of analytics, if you see how it has evolved, it is started from reporting, okay, and then it is started like data correlation, and you can say uh, 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 connecting multiple dots, then came planning, and then came forecasting, etc. And it has actually got embedded into operations in terms of like self-learning systems, course corrections. So you have, think about continuous manufacturing. It can be a food processing plant, it can be a fertilizer plant, it can be let us say a steel mill, and these are like continuously manufacturing. And what happens is that the control systems monitor all their parameters, and they have certain ranges within which it has to operate. Otherwise there are some counterbalancing operations that are coded. So it has been, then came the social media world, where um, you know basically all your Facebooks and LinkedIn's and all, they had the world of big data, where they used a certain amount of AI to kind of figure out, like who should you be connected to, what should you be watching. And of course that has gone completely wrong. That's another area we will talk about in terms of like the guardrails. And now the latest one has come, where it can generate content. So there are multiple forms of AI. But now when you look at in terms of how it transforms business, let's take a collective view of it. So to begin with, in terms of business processes, what used to happen in, let us say, in continuous manufacturing plants, and all these business operations, uh, uh, the data being used to continuously keep the process parameters under control without really a manual intervention. That's typically the enhancing operational efficiency. In typical terms, you will come across robotic process automation as the latest, I would say, kid on the block, where you are able to connect multiple systems. You are able to kind of, you are able to carry over tasks across multiple systems, automate them. There's certain amount of intelligence that comes in front in the form of optical character recognition, in terms of like different field types, etc., etc. um, well, I think another big use case can be supply chain management, because supply chain management again has so many moving parts, and you have typically today's factories, they work on very, very lean inventory, and therefore if there is a small supply chain disruption somewhere, you're running a just in time or just in sequence operation. You need to know that, okay, if one of the trucks which is carrying goods breaks down, what part of my production will get affected, and therefore how do I need to resequence my manufacturing. Plus there can be many others, in terms of your warehousing decisions, stocking decisions, manufacturing decisions, where it can help. Of course, we have the data driven decision making, business intelligence, which is powered by AI. What Gen AI also did is it brought a chat interface. Earlier there used to be a search interface, and now there's a chat interface where you can actually chat with it like a human being. You can assign it roles. There's a completely new area of prompt engineering which has come in. If you are really interested in making use of AI for your personal effectiveness, you must learn about prompt engineering. There's a ton of material out there. It's probably the latest subject which has proliferated now. But whatever you can learn about prompt engineering, understand the basic principles, that you have got a kind of master of the universe, a huge knowledge repository, and the power that it brings to you is simply about how you ask it. It can tell you anything, but so the art is in how do you get that knowledge for yourself. Okay. So but of course there are challenges. So before we come to the challenges, just one more thing, just to kind of summarize this, whether it is operational efficiency or customer experience or data-driven decision making. Sorry, we didn't talk about the customer experience. Yeah, you can do personalization at scale. You recently saw a viral video of Ayushman Khurrana talking to customers, with their own name, even though it was like a public place, uh, just by recognizing you somewhere. So personalization at scale is something that's possible. The chat interface is becoming much more and more intelligent, which is nothing but conversational AI and chatbots. I think that's something that's going to really revolutionize customer service, and I do hope that um, this whole uh, conundrum of, like, calling a call center and then going through multiple choices and then waiting for half an hour for an agent to service you. I hope those situations will be past us. Now, coming to challenges, and I left an anchor out there in the discussion about how social media went wrong. um, AI is malleable. What rules you tell it, or what intent you tell it, it will basically work on that. So here is what happened. All these social media platforms, uh, their intent was to maximize the, what do you call, the stickiness of the platform, that you should come back again and again, you should find content interesting. I should be throwing content at you which you find interesting and which makes you come back to my platform again and again. What probably they didn't teach the AI models at that time is that, guys, human beings are, the fear works best with human beings. Okay. And so the era of sensationalism came in. Even today, you go to YouTube and you find a cover on a video which is nothing like what is inside the video. Okay. It's just to, like, grab your attention. Content creators took that bait, so social media platforms built the platforms to maximize the viewership, to bring you again and again. In the process, their models learned that the negative news, violence, conspiracy theories, they are, like, they really attract people, and they just served you that. And now you have content creators who are serving you that, who are creating stuff in that manner. So the important thing is to you know uh, take care of that algorithmic bias. Of course, when you look at from an these kind of things which will inadvertently come in, and therefore you want to make sure that uh, that you factor in the risks and the negative consequences of whatever you are doing. There's an important area which is generally discussed as part of AI, which is the traceability, right? Or explainability, it is called. That means AI is doing 20 different things to get you a result. But if you want to go back, you're not happy with the result, or you really see a big concern with that result, it could be a race bias, it could be anything. Can you trace back as to where did it come from? And I think that will be a good guardrail to build. Um, the ecosystem is evolving. I don't believe all the naysayers who are saying that that the business impact will be limited. I think it's the first time in the history of mankind where you have intelligence that can generate something. Till date, we had intelligence. You feed it data and it will give you something. The first time ever that they are able to go one level above in intelligence, at the level of abstraction, at the level of, like, synthesizing data, not only data and content, but also the moods and the styles, and a lot of those things. And it's able to generate this thing. So I use AI in day-to-day stuff, and I just see that, like what happens always in the technology world, that technology always comes and makes a big impact at a personal level. That means confidentiality, privacy, and all those issues kind of get parked aside, as it works its magic. And then the enterprises come in with their guardrails and with their, like, your confidentiality issues, security issues, training challenges, etc., etc., change management challenges, etc. And then you have, the technology being adopted. So I can give you a couple of pointers. For example, the unlimited mailbox, Google Gmail came sometime in early 2000. When did we have the almost unlimited mailbox coming in the enterprise world? It was probably, I think, 2014 that Office 365 came in, 13 or 14, right? Almost like a gap of 10 years. So the gap here will not be, of course, 10 years. It will be less than that. So I don't want to belabor the point. Just to summarize, um, technology in the personal space comes first, then comes in the enterprise space. In the enterprise space, it's all about business results. So beyond employee productivity that the Gen AI will come in with, there are obvious areas starting from customer experience to the complexities of supply chain, and of course, decision making, making sense of variety of data and dashboards. I think those are immediate areas where it can make a difference. So as I promised, time for questions. Well, I can see a lot of comments here, so let me first acknowledge. So Gaurav, hey Gaurav, thanks for joining us. Um, so Gaurav plays great tennis, and we play together. Thanks Gaurav for joining us. Jay works from Pune. He confirms, yeah. Satya, okay. So Satya has the first question. As a leader, what is your methodology for a non-technical question when a team member approaches you to address a social issue which is not work related, and it's a broader trend and it goes against your values? What do you do, and how do you start the conversation? That's a great question, Satya. And um, let me tell you a story in there. It's actually not my story, it's a Chanakya story. So you remember there was a time when Chandragupta Maurya was, you know, um, Chanakya wanted Chandragupta Maurya. He saw the talent in him and he wanted him to sort of be the Samrat Emperor of India, unify India, and then, like, create a sort of deterrent in terms of a unified India that, which goes beyond partisanship, etc., etc., etc. So he was mobilizing people, and he made a very, very inspirational speech to a group of young people and said, okay, now who all will join the army? Okay. And all hands went up except one. Okay. And by the way, this guy was the most, uh, you know, you can say most muscular guy, the tallest guy, most muscular guy. And therefore it stood out that he didn't raise his hand. Chanakya looked at him and he said, take me to your house. Okay. Everyone else signed up. This guy goes with him to his house, and he found that, he had an ailing widow mother, okay, who had nobody to take care of her. And it became actually very obvious that the guy didn't raise his hand not because he didn't love his motherland, but because he had a mother to take care of. So Chanakya, instead of talking to the guy, actually talked to the mother, okay, and said, what if this guy is not there tomorrow? What if I take him tomorrow for serving the motherland? And she said, I'll be very happy. Right? Now, this young man had that apprehension. And then she kind of laid out, how it does not matter. And she said, I've got neighbors, I know I'll call so and so, etc., etc., etc. And then this guy Chanakya looked at the young man, and the young man was like, yeah, I'll come along. Okay. So it's very important that, we people, as we are like, 10% of the iceberg that we see, right? The 90% of what makes us, or what has gone inside us, is like all those years of experiences, our upbringing, our parents, our friends, etc., etc. But when we make when we judge people, we basically judge them based on maybe a few seconds or a few minutes or maybe a few hours of interaction. Okay, so I think that's where the I would say different. That's my starting point when I am when I'm looking at any kind of what you call as a non-technical question. Uh, when a team member approaches you to address a social issue, it's basically very good to understand somebody as a person and not just as a professional or as a role in which he's interacting with you. He may be interacting with you as a vendor, he may be interacting with you as a subordinate, or even as a boss sometimes. It's very important to understand where is someone coming from, right? So I would generally go into start with family background, start from which places you have lived in, what kind of schools you have gone to, etc., etc. And it is all not to judge somebody but to understand somebody as a complete person. Okay, and somewhere in that conversation, Satya, you will get that needle in the haystack that you're looking for, which is where is that anomaly, especially when you're saying that when it goes against your values. So my values are not different from the human values. Okay, and that is something that I really hold a belief that we all intuitively understand what is right as human beings. Okay, if we go against that, what we generally call as a dharma, right? Dharma is like what is the right thing to be done. Okay, and if somebody doesn't act as per that, that means there is something which either broke his belief, or there is something which has conditioned his thought. And generally I'm looking for that answer, and I generally find it, right? It's now comes the second part, which is how do you resolve it? I would say the success rate is mixed. If the person can acknowledge where it is coming from, and you can have a discussion around that, if the mind is open, you generally end up understanding, getting that aha, that, oh, you know what, yeah, I remember this was the inflection point. But sometimes it is just we get too tightly programmed, and we don't want to lose that, because that's what defines us. Then we simply have to say, yeah, there'll be some incident, there'll be somebody else who will come in your life who will be able to do that. So answering your question and summarizing, how do you start the conversation? My conversation starter is always about knowing the person a little deeper. And how do I broach the topic? I will broach the topic in a very open way. If there is like a closed questions and open questions, I have programmed myself, or I have taught myself to ask open questions. That means I will not ask simple thing that, hey, you did that, do you think that's right? No, I will ask an open question. When you did that, what was going in your mind? Why did you do that? What made you do that, etc. So that makes the person open up, and then that's a conversation starter. Okay, so Sats, if there's a follow-up question, please do ask, but I hope that was useful, and I hope I was not rambling like a 50-year-old, which I am actually. Okay, so Karthik has a question. He says, I have posted my question on the comment section to this AMA session, comparing and contrasting the leading AML personal voice assistants, Apple Siri, Alexa, Copilot, OpenAI, GPT, and Google Voice Assistant. And if you would be so kind as to take a look at that chart attached to the comment, I would be grateful. Hey, Karthik, I'm so happy and so grateful that that you didn't just ask a question, but you actually contributed to answering that question. So yes, I will definitely have a look at it. I can't actually open LinkedIn at the same time as I'm speaking here. It will create that echo. No, it won't create a echo. There's a 10-second lag in that. But of course, I can't be looking at it right now. But I'll definitely respond to it, and I'm sure there's a lot to learn for me myself here. I think Microsoft Copilot, the only thing is that, Karthik, I think Microsoft Copilot and OpenAI GPT is, I would kind of like, it's like, two mangoes painted differently, because Microsoft is a huge investor in OpenAI, and they actually bring back a lot of those technologies in a very, very contextual way from a tool point of view to build their models. So it's more like, how Android gets packaged by Samsung in with a different name. To me, it sounds that way. Of course, I mean this to be a conversation starter. So if you think that no, that's not how it is, please do post another comment. Okay, thank you. Okay, so Amarinder, next question is from Amarinder. Amarinder says, how much is enterprise open source prevalent in Indian organizations? What are the nuances for a CIO while adopting, maintaining open source and transitioning out of it? What could be trigger reasons for the same? So, Amarinder, it's a great question. I do not know how much it is prevalent, but I do know there are organizations which have adopted open source in a big way. Okay. If you remember, you can actually refer to the ClariTea Chat I had with the CIO of Narayan Health, Kumar. Uh, Kumar, if I'm correct. Yeah, I do know he's Kumar. So, where he mentioned that, because they're a very frugal organization, they tend to work only on, they have a great preference for open source. And I think we did have a sort of discussion on open source at that time. I do know another organization which is like, a big adopter of open source, especially in new cutting edge technologies. Okay. I'm trying to get their CIO to come on ClariTea Chat. So I'll keep it a secret who it is. But I can tell you that it's an automobile organization, and, they have built a complete solution on open source tools, no proprietary tools. So, Amrinder, now let's get into the basics of your question as to where that question is coming from. Okay, I understand. Which is that, is open source a sustainable one? Is open source risk free? Are there concerns about open source? Um, I used to have a sort of a little bias against open source, because for me, but that was of course in a different era when, we were more into the enterprise software, like, we had SAP and Siebel and Oracle and all of those things. Well, at that time, my view was that, technology is an enabler for business outcomes. So my focus was more on business outcomes, and I used to think that, listen, if we have to spend some money on license and maintenance, as long as it puts the ownership of, ownership, the technical roadmap, and keeping the technology current, and, bringing in patches, etc. As long as somebody's taking care of it, I'm fine with it, and therefore, my preference was for uh, off-the-shelf tools. Okay, but I think it was around early 2010s we figured out that, we have moved ahead, and, there are standard technologies are not there for the solutions we want. Like, for example, at that time we were working on telematics, and we found that there was, I mean, telematics, you had, people who were giving you boxes and who were sort of getting the data from the boxes, but those were black boxes. You won't have access to that data. And come on, I mean, me as a product company not having access to my own data in the way I want, and not having it in my enterprises, was no way acceptable. And therefore we we said we are going to build it on our own. And thankfully, by that time, AWS came in. So open source had another contextual issue, which was about infrastructure availability. So till the time you have to build everything in house, you know, who would take the effort to kind of download the versions, and then and then create those servers? The virtualization, was came at that time. After virtualization, cloud came, etc. So the ecosystem was not really very conducive at that time. If you have to create so many servers yourself, there was no automation tools. Like today, for example, you can spawn servers automatically without a manual intervention. Your load goes up, tuck 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 tuck, your servers horizontally start spawning up based on the automation, etc. So there were a lot of things which were not conducive for open source at that time. And by the way, when I'm answering your question, Amarinder, I'm also in a way reflecting how things have changed and why today is the era of open source. Now today you can actually control a lot of your technology future, okay, without really creating a lot of complexity, which was the case when I was the CIO long back. So today you have cloud, you have various automation tools, you have scalability architecture. There's a lot of it. If it is not there, you can build it on your own, and you have an ecosystem which supports it very well. By the way, all these hyperscalers, like they will give you the versions of those open source tools, etc. Right? Um, so wait. Yeah. So now coming to why people still kind of shy away. I think it's a typical, CYA mindset. Um, End of the day, nobody wants to take a risk. Okay, and it's not just the CIO. It's actually, everyone except probably the promoter or the shareholder is like, is worried about his job. Okay, so when it comes to, let's say, reducing your cost by a lot and having flexibility and ownership and controlling your future to an extent, versus like paying somebody some money and passing off the risk to them. Okay, many times people will pass off the risk to them, unless pass off the risk to others, unless you have an entrepreneurial mindset. So you will find that people where the culture is entrepreneurial, where the mindset is entrepreneurial, you will find a certain amount of bias, or I would not even say bias, a balance towards taking, let's say, the system of records, which is COTS tools, and having the systems of innovation or systems of differentiation which are built on open source. You cannot have completely on the either side, um, but you will find a very good balance in such case. I hope that answers your question, and that answers the concern and the intent behind your question, Amrinder. But of course, if there's something I didn't address, I'll be happy to take it up as a follow-up. Okay, so we have Amrinder coming again. He says, just saying spirit scores over sequence. With this lens, Satya Prakash Bomaraju scales the highest in his dedication to attend, participate in ClariTea Chat. I agree. I agree. Getting up early morning, 6:30. If that option was given to me, Satya, I would rather, I would rather watch the recording. I would still follow, but I would rather watch the recording than participate. So three cheers, Amrinder. I completely agree with you on that. Okay. Okay. So we have next question coming from Prabhakar. But let me just take this question from this augmentation to the discussion from Satya. He says the total cost of ownership of an OSS must be open source system, right? OSS must be factored in, as JV mentioned. Production support is a crucial aspect that gets overlooked. Sometimes license models change too. Yeah. I think the reason open source has also picked up is because of the opaqueness that you find in the technology industry, the Hotel California syndrome that technology providers have always exploited, right? I mean, the latest being that that everyone is being pushed in the ERP world, everyone is being pushed into a certain model, and there are no alternatives. And you can, and you don't have support beyond 2025 if you don't go into that model. I don't want to name it on this public forum, but that's the kind of arm twisting that goes on. And uh, well, at the next available opportunity, if that same provider is giving me, 5 different solutions for 5 different, let's say, business processes, or even, let's say, any innovation opportunities, why would I go for them? So somewhere, I think it is like, people are kind of compromising their long term for the short term. I don't see anybody, building their systems of innovation on these traditional tools. The guys who have exploited, the Hotel California syndrome. That means you cannot get out of a technology. Once you get into technology, the costs of coming out are just too high. That doesn't make business sense. Okay. Yeah. So that was the change in licensing model. So somebody is going from a perpetual license model to a completely cloud license model, and there's not anything you can do about them, right? So like for example, Microsoft, all of them actually, if you look at Microsoft, has moved from perpetual license ownership of their office tools to now a completely subscription based model. So SAP is going the same way, everyone is going the same way, and we all know why they're doing it, because if you are a SaaS company, the valuation multiples that you command in terms of price to earning ratio are much, much better than if you are just selling a technology and you're not making money over the life cycle of the technology. Okay, so now let me come to the next question from Prabhakar. Prabhakar says, do organizations have the appetite for transformation or innovation optimization? Alternatively, is it how you sell innovation as transformation to the stakeholders? Asking this since everybody wants quick wins, nobody would like to have a long drawn BPR. Oh, absolutely, Prabhakar. I mean, I look at everything from a first principle point of view, and a very important first principle is, what is the motivation? What is the human motivation to do something? Okay. Um, and I mean, we know that in organization, and we are into a world which is a world of, you can say, instant gratification. There's not too much appetite for long-term benefit. We used to have a term in the Hindu philosophy, which is called Shreyas versus Preyas. I don't know how many of you know this. If anybody knows, please do mention here. So Shreyas is something which is like, which is good in the long term, but it may be painful in the short term. And Preyas is something which is like, good in the short term, but is not so good in the long term. And the very obvious example is food. Okay, so food and exercise. So getting up in the morning and forcing yourself to go to the gym, okay, is definitely not prayers, okay, but it is definitely shreyas. It is going to give you good health in the long term, good health, good heart, good muscles in the long term. But it's always painful in the short term. I know having a jalebi or rasgulla is good in the short term. It gives you instant gratification, but it doesn't serve you in the long term. And I think that's something. Um, and when what I see is that maybe there are lots of not some lots of old timers like us left who understand this difference, but the new world is probably going more towards instant gratification. That's one part of the problem. The second part of the problem is, what we had part of our discussion, which is VUCA. There's like so much of volatility, uncertainty, etc. in the world, that nobody wants to think long term, because I may put my bets on a company. I may work there for 15 years, and the company may fire me. I mean, why am I doing this? A lot of times we ask ourselves this question, that is there something called long term? The way the world is changing so fast now, in the context of your question, which is transformation and transformation, optimization, innovation, etc. Probably it's the same mindset. Anything big that you do, and transformation and innovation will be typically big things, do carry a risk. Okay. Now they carry a risk, they carry additional hard work beyond what your operational work demands. Okay. Now, given the uncertain nature of the world today, right? Why would somebody sacrifice his quality of life, take an additional risk, if something goes wrong, risk losing his job. Okay, all of these things on one side, and on the other side, just do what is required to be done, run the operations, keep things okay. If the boss gets an idea, execute it. Otherwise, don't bring your ideas to the table, live a happy life. Well, I think that's where the fundamental this thing is. So, well, how to overcome this is basically who are the guys who are ready to take that extra burden or extra effort to transform something. People who are dissatisfied with the status quo. Okay? And these are typically, I would not call them entrepreneurs, because entrepreneur entrepreneur is more like a mindset. I would call these people entrepreneurial mindset, right? So they are willing to go the extra mile, they're willing to work harder than anybody else, and they are willing to take risks for a greater reward. And therefore, as organizations, well, now what you will see, now there is a chasm. Now we talked about everyone wanting to do this. There's an entrepreneurial mindset. Now let's understand the guy who's sitting on top is the entrepreneur, right? So he would want to do that, and therefore you see that all entrepreneurs, all organizations, there's a intent on the top, but there's a kind of a reversal mechanism at the bottom, as they say that the culture eats a strategy for breakfast. Okay. So uh, the challenge is for the entrepreneur or the top boss to create that entrepreneurial organization or to create that dissatisfaction. But remember what we said, you're taking risks, you could lose your job, but to provide that what we call as a safety net. Okay. So many organizations who are, I would say, who are successful with innovation create that safety net. And I worked in Tata's, and I know we had this Tata Innovista Awards, and we also had a competition in the Tata Innovista Awards, and I think it still goes on, where it was called like the most spectacular. There was an award by the name, the most spectacular failure, something like that. I don't know what the exact name of the award is. And that was like all the innovation efforts that companies took, which could not bear fruit. Okay, and there was a competition on which is the most spectacular failure. I think that's how you promote entrepreneurial spirit. You celebrate failures and you say that, hey, it's okay to fail. Okay, as long as you don't take the company down with it, it's okay to fail. Okay, and you will find that there are departments that stand out, there are organizations that stand out. Within the organization, there are departments that stand out for their ability to move fast, for their ability to innovate, for their ability to think differently. And you will find that there'll be few things you will find in those departments or in those operations. One is that the top guy is never afraid of taking a risk. The top guy protects everybody within the department. So thankfully, where this comes from, not as a theoretical knowledge, is that I started my career from an office where both my uh, I started in service in a zonal office of Tata Hitachi, which was a division of Tata Motors at that time. And our sales regional manager of sales and the regional manager of service, both of these guys were entrepreneurs, and both of these guys had given us a free hand that we can go do anything and they'll be there to protect us. In uh, they say that I'll have your back. Okay, so they always had our backs, and therefore we became entrepreneurs right early in our in our childhood of our career, and I think that is what then continued. So so Prabhakar, maybe like, the last point on that is, when you're trying to sell innovation or transformation, look for people who have the entrepreneurial attitude. Okay. So, okay. So Satya has a suggestion. How fares tea off to clarity? Well, then I will need a golf club in each of my creative, Satya. But that's not a bad idea, actually. We'll figure out how to use it. When I make a note of it, let's see how we can use that. Gives me some ideas. Let me hold them back for now. Okay. Okay. So there are a couple of comments from Karthik. So Karthik, we are at like 5:50, and I want to make sure that we cover some more ground, especially that some topics that we took up today. Um, okay. So in continuation of Prabhakar's question around innovation, transformation, what are the blockers, etc. There was a question from Sets himself. Okay, oh Satya, this is your question, so I want to take it up because you're here. What core leadership principles do you rely on in tough times? Okay. So we were, my team did some research. So by the way, let me just tell all of you how the whole thing works. The ClariTea Chat AMA sessions work is that we basically pick up. Uh, my team keeps track of all the questions which could not be discussed in an interactive manner during any of our guest sessions or even in the AMAs, and then we kind of, as and when that khada becomes full, that vessel becomes fuller, we kind of try to schedule a AMA session to answer those questions. So now what we do is we select a few questions out of that for our, as part of our post, as part of a creative. And then what the team does is, they start doing some research online to identify, some stuff. Well, I think they found a lot when they were looking for this. What core leadership principles do you rely in tough times, VUCA times, and there was a ton of research, and I don't want to bore you with that. What So there were a few things that came out, and Satya, I mean, again, willing to engage in that discussion. Um, you require both things. An attitude is not sufficient. Right? An to uh, attitude of personal leadership principles to win in to thrive or survive or thrive in these tough times where things are just changing too fast for our cognitive abilities is difficult. So there are, I would I just summarized into two areas. One is personal leadership, and second is basically formal, you can say, scientific methods. Okay, so on the personal leadership side, I would put a lot of premium on lateral thinking. Lateral thinking means look at something from multiple points of view. Okay, um, and whatever you see, try to think about it completely differently. Okay, there used to be those there are those quizzes, or there are those questions which come, find the meaning of this, and you have like, you have an I written and you have like two circles below that, and you have another I written and two circles below that, and you are asked like, what does it mean? And and then the people who are good lateral thinkers will say, oh, that circles below eyes. Okay. So, and then there's a line and you have standing below that line, and that's like understanding. So your standing is below the line, so that's understand. So like that, I mean, those are like just some examples. That means think completely differently, sometimes completely literally about things that you see. I mean, the first principle thinking that I keep professing, or that I believe in and that I practice, is that you ask you ask why a few times and you get your answer. Okay. So lateral thinking is very important. Look at things from multiple points of view. Look at things from, deeper and deeper point of view. Every why takes you a layer deeper. So if you ask why 2-3 times, you will understand it. Like for example, when I looked at Amarinder's question today when he asked about the open source. I asked myself, why is Amarinder asking that question? And then I got a very, I would say, simple answer that, open source carries certain amount of risk, but a lot of promise, lower cost, a lot of promise, and not so in the COTS tools, but still people go for COTS. So why? Yeah. So that's where the discussion started. So that's one that must be like, think horizontally, widely about something that you see or that pertains to your work, and then think deeply in terms of multiple whys. The second is basically the continuous learning and improvement. I mentioned earlier that, be dissatisfied. Okay. And therefore, you're always looking at what is a better way to do it. Okay. You're learning from others. So if I again go deeper into each of these, like, there are some more principles coming. Like, for example, if you say continuous learning, how do you learn continuously? Okay. Typically, we all identify with our industry, with our line of work. So let us say I'm a finance professional in automobile company, right? I may know everything about automobiles. I may know everything about finance. Okay. Uh, the question becomes, how do I learn further? How do I continue my learning? And that's when you need to look outside. So there are two things that I always suggest. One is benchmarking. Okay. However good you are, okay, there is somebody in some industry who's better than you. So look cross industry. Okay. So first is benchmarking within your industry. Look around and see. If you have to be dissatisfied, you have to look around and be dissatisfied, right? You may be the most beautiful girl in the village, but if you want to be dissatisfied by yourself, you have to, buy a film fair and look at all the heroines inside and say that, oh, no, no, you know what, I can do more, I can do better. I mean, sorry if it sounds like misogynist, but I just wanted to give an example. If you are coming first in the class, okay, try looking up your position in the district. You will find that, oh, there are better people, right? So one way to learn continuously is to find ways how you can be dissatisfied with your status quo. Benchmark within your industry, benchmark outside your industry, and look for best practices wherever you can. And as I said, the core of that is being dissatisfied. Okay, so be dissatisfied with what it is, and if you can't find what it is within your industry, go outside your industry to be dissatisfied with. Okay, so just to give one example, and Satya has seen that, we used to do websites in a certain way. When Nano came around and we said, like, we want to do a different website, so you won't find that in automobile industry. So you have to look outside and you say, oh, how banks have their websites, how, let's say, other consumer brands have, like, who want to generate, who want to engage with users and all of that, and so on, right? And uh, so be dissatisfied, and that leads to continuous learning and improvement. The third will be a mindset of learning itself. That means, you are always curious. One is dissatisfaction, second is curiosity. Both of them lead to learning. And I think the last but not the least is the flexibility and resilience. Um, never ever take a Angad's stance. Okay, so don't lock yourself into any position, and don't get too emotionally attached with anything. You have to be rational. You have to be data driven, fact driven, and when data proves otherwise, whether it's about you, whether it's about your work, whether it's about your industry, okay, take cognizance of it. And resilience means, so flexibility and resilience go together. Resilience means, uh, you know whatever happens, don't lose focus and don't lose your strength. you uh, well, I don't want to go much longer about it. We are just 2 minutes left. So I want to now address the second part of that question, which is the formal methods. What are the other areas to sort of like, where you can actually get some formal learning or training to get better at, succeeding in the VUCA world. So one is definitely scenario planning. As we are saying that, the fear, uncertainty, doubt, and everything is increasing in the world. Scenario planning is a very formal methodology which says that, don't try to forecast in a very singular manner what's going to happen going forward. I have been trained on that methodology. All I can do is I can summarize it for you, saying that, it looks at, the possibilities, whether it's your industry, whether it's political landscape, whether it is customer demo, customer preferences, a lot of questions that you have about the future as to how it is going to evolve in the future. It actually creates 4 different scenarios on 2 different completely contrasting axes. Okay, so there's one end of this axis, the other end of this axis. Okay, and there's like one end of the other axis and the other end of axis, and that forces you to look at 4 different very, very contrasting models of the future. And then you start, as you keep going forward, you keep looking at, hey, which side of the axis the world is moving. Okay, it will move on both the axes, but is it moving upwards and right ways, it is moving upwards and downside, or it is moving like like this, or it is moving like this. Okay, so you will probably be ready for that. Okay. The another one is risk management. We always have worries about what can go wrong. Okay, but worrying is not risk management. Okay? Whether it's your job, your career, your company, your function, managing risk is not about worrying. Okay, that's the big difference. Managing risk is managing. That means whatever worries you have, verbalize them, and then find a mitigation for each one of them, right? Like, for example, you may be in a certain function, you may say, hey, this function is getting disrupted by generative AI. Okay, now that's a risk, right? So what happens to my job? The mitigation is like, what are the other capabilities you have where you should be probably getting ready for an alternative career, right? That's the risk mitigation. And the third one is experimentation and innovation. Again, that's something that's there's quite a lot of, I would say, formal stuff there. It's not just like you just go and burn your hands in an experiment, but how to go about it, how to set up a system of innovation, how to create a culture of experimentation and innovation. I think there's a lot of stuff there. So those are few things that you should be looking at. Okay, so we are at the end of the hour. Let us wrap up now. Um, okay, so I think it's a we could not cover at all our backlog, and I'm sure we have created some more backlog here. Yes, it was some more. We have created some more backlog. There are a few comments from Kartikeyan and Sets. That book idea, fantastic book idea. Yes, it's part of my bucket list. Let things settle down a bit. So just to like since it's an interactive discussion, I must tell you that I have both my college going kids. I'm waiting for them to kind of settle down in their lives, start earning money, and I want to take flock and go to a logical place um, where it takes a trajectory of its own. And I think that will be the time to probably um, go to my house in Uttarakhand, spend some time in peace, writing, reflecting, reading a lot of books. I've got at least 5 to 7 books which are unread on my table and on my bedside. So yeah, Satya, as they say, हजारों ख्वाहिशें ऐसी कि हर ख्वाहिश पे दम निकले, बहुत निकले मेरे अरमान लेकिन फिर भी कम निकले. In English, it translates as, I had thousands of wishes, but still they were not enough. And sorry, I had thousands of wishes, and I could actually, I could actually sacrifice a lot for each one of them, but then they were still not sufficient. uh, my wishes were still not sufficient. So that means, that's the human life. Our uh, just things keep coming up, and we keep addressing them as we go along. But yeah, we must not forget our wishes. That's for sure. So Satya, I'm not forgetting it. I'm not diluting it. Okay. Okay, so guys, I think it's a great session. I know only I was speaking, but I was happy that I was seeing follow-up questions, follow-up comments, and contributions coming from all of you, whether it's Amarinder, Satya, or Karthik. Prabhakar, thanks for that question. That got me going on the fundamental disconnect that I see between the digital transformation and the typical employee mindset per se. So thanks for that. And yeah, guys, thanks for contributing to the discussion and being here. And Before I drop off, I must also thank all of you out there who are watching a recording of this. Um, we actually see the stats of our ClariTea chats. Given that it happens on a Saturday evening, the attendance is not very high. But we see that within a week, for a 1 hour video, for a 1+ hour video, our views go into a few thousands, which is what actually surprises us as well as motivates us. So thank you all for attending, and thank you for those watching the recording too. See you guys. Have a great weekend. Bye bye.